Hey man,
Hey, hey,
how you feeling?
pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I guess I could turn off
Good, good.
this Pandora now, huh?
Yeah, probably so. Whenever you're ready. Can you hear me good?
I can. I can hear you very well. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Cool, cool, cool. I see Ray Comics joined us too. How you doing, TJ?
What up, Ray Comics? What's
I mean,
going
I'm
on?
assuming that's TJ.
Yeah, it could be one of his many cohorts. So, how are you doing this evening?
I am well. I am well. It's a good day.
Good.
For me, it's a good day.
Yeah, good, good. TJ, yes, indeed. That's for sure him.
Yeah, it's him. It's
Yeah,
that's him. All right. Well, I was trying to give us a few more minutes to let some people come on, but
yeah, that's absolutely fine. Let them get in.
let them
I
get
would imagine
in.
it's gonna be a good lengthy talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on how much you share. So,
You know me, I love talking, so
so that's what it is. But everything good? Your family's good?
everybody is good, everybody is happy, everybody is healthy. I could ask for no more, so I won't. I'm thankful.
That's good to hear. Good news, good news, good
Absolutely.
things. Good things, good things. So how was so I went to Michigan last weekend. Not this past one, but the one before. And it
Okay.
rained every single day that I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it was like the UK around these parts. It was very gloomy, it was very rainy. Um, it was uncommon. I mean, we usually get a pretty decent amount of rain, but not that much. It was legit like every single day for about a week
Every
and a half straight.
single day. So we were
Yeah.
there. I was there for a bridal shower, and
Okay.
we were where we were for the bridal shower was near like Belsey Road, and
Okay.
literally right at the moment that we left after cleaning up, they had a tornado watch,
Yeah.
and that was like the central location for the tornado. I was
Hmm.
just like, it's time to go home. Like I could
Yeah.
have, like,
Now, were you near like North or South Belcio?
north.
North. Okay, that's right around the corner from the crib, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. I stay in a little subdivision off of Belsey Road.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's where we were for like all Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad everybody made it out all safe and all good and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Let's do
So,
it.
anyone who's new, I'm Janae. Um, I am starting a series, Let's Talk About It, where we get personal about just kind of health overall, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and just like having conversations with different people, particularly people of color, and just kind of get their take and their experiences on how they've been managing their overall health, especially during this pandemic. So I have my guest here, Mr. Rob Boggan. And I want him to introduce himself so he can tell y'all who he is, what he does, and all of that beautiful stuff.
Hey, hey. So as you heard in the intro, my name is Rob Bogan. I am the curator, the owner, the editor-in-chief of the Curated Culture, which is a website that's basically dedicated to dissecting the hottest items, stories, articles, clothes, shoes, gadgets, whatever, from all walks of our society. And we talk about a little bit of everything. There's nerdy stuff there, there's serious stuff there, the whole shot. And I'm an overall nerd. That's what I do. I'm a sponge. I like to absorb knowledge and try to share it with the world in a very easy to digest way. I think
All
that's
right.
it.
Yeah, that's good. And I've watched many of Rob's YouTube videos, and I find them to be very informative and entertaining. So if you haven't checked
Thank
them
you.
out yet, check them out on YouTube. No problem, no problem. So let's get to the meat of this. So you talked about what you do with curated culture. How did you even, what made you start the cure? Because I know before you were something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I am one that I embrace change, right? So I was running a site called Nerd News for about 9 years actually, and
Wow.
it was a very successful site. It was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. It was really good, but as a journalist, I do air quotes because I'm not educated as a journalist, but self-taught. As a journalist, I started to feel differently about the content and the things that I was putting out into the world. So I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit, and I wanted to not necessarily be so foxholed or pigeonholed into a certain type of content. Because with nerd news, everybody kind of expected and knew that anything I wrote about was going to be Comic Con related or cell
Hmm.
phone related, and that was pretty much it. Well, I also wanted to touch on things like mental health. I wanted to talk about sneakers because I'm a big sneakerhead. I wanted to talk about, things that was happening in the world, in the US specifically, because um, I couldn't necessarily fit that type of content into Nerd News. So I killed Nerd News, I buried it and rebranded as the Curated Culture so that that umbrella is kind of removed, so to speak, and I can feel free to talk about, whatever I wanted to talk about without there necessarily being an expectation or especially not feeling like I'm alienating one part of my readers or my fan base over the other because as my taste and interest grew, so did my the diversity of my content.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice.
So that was essentially why I started it. I wanted to be able to discuss and share and talk about all these different things that I started to become interested in. And on top of that, I wanted to challenge myself. If I like to again say that I'm a journalist, I'm a real, actual, legit writer. So I wanted to be able to challenge myself and really see, if I had it to not only be able to whip out a review on a smartphone or something like that, but if I can present, culturally something that's going on in the community or in the states and really, really break it down so that people would know this is something that's important. Here's why you should care about it without necessarily all the fluff that you get on, on CNN and stuff like that. I want it to present it in a real down to earth, real easy to understand method.
Okay. So while we're on the topic, you're talking about why this is important. Why is mental health, in your opinion, important, especially in the Black community?
Oh my God. So with anything that you do in life, mental health has to be that center pillar, right? It's the foundation of your house, if you will. If that's not strong, you will struggle through a lot of different things, especially if you are a creative or a creator is very, very important in the Black community specifically, which I'm very open about. Even my struggles sometimes, with mental health and making sure that if you're struggling, you talk to a therapist or you have some sort of support system. It is extremely important in the Black community because it is still in 2021, it's still something that we don't talk about or embrace enough.
Hmm.
You still have a lot of people that will kind of take up the feeling or the stance like, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Just get over it. Whatever it is that you're feeling, just get over it. And that's not the best way to handle things. And some people feel like they can't talk to their friends or their family about it because they get that response. And it's like, yo, if you see, excuse the graphicness of this, but this is one of my favorite analogies. Like if you watch a sprinter running full speed and you see them snap their ankle right in front of you, you're not going to tell them, just get up and walk it off.
Right.
They
Right.
can't, it's not that simple. And that's kind of that's what I like to portray to everybody that, if you have a friend or a family member or coworker even, somebody that you can see or that is struggling with mental health, take a few seconds because really that's all it takes sometimes. Take a few seconds, talk to them, let them know, what's up because that's something that's missing now. A lot of people kind of talk about the stigma of mental health and things like that, but they don't really put action behind it. And so I think that's highly important that you not only discuss it, you not only be aware of it, but you also put that action behind it. Check in on your people. Let people know that you're thinking about them. Be a genuine ear or a shoulder for somebody if you know that they're struggling or having a hard time, because it's not something that happens very often, especially within our community.
Agreed, agreed. Now, so for me, and I can share at least with my experience. So you talk about check on your people, right? Which is
Hmm.
good if your people are honest with you if they're dealing with something. So I have to
For
say
sure.
that because for me, I didn't like I wasn't open about it, right? It took me
Okay.
a while to just admit that yo, I'm dealing with something because I didn't know what this something was. And it took a while for me to actually put a name to it. And even after that, and I've said this before, even after that, I went to the doctor for just, your regular physicals or whatever.
Right.
And of course, I had during this time period, I was suffering with a lot of like unexplainable illnesses. So I was going to the doctor way more often than I should have been. And my
Hmm.
doctor asked me at least 2 or 3 times, like, are you depressed? And I told her no every single time. So it's
Right.
like getting to a place where you acknowledge if something is wrong and you're not too afraid to admit it to somebody so you can get the
Hmm.
help. Because it's like, how do you encourage people to open up and just talk? Like it took a few years for me to just say, yo, I have a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not something that we don't do that. You know what I'm
No.
saying? You just kind of dust off your shoulders and keep it moving. But the keep it
Hmm.
moving process was becoming more and more challenging. You know what I'm saying? So I got to the point where I became so emotionalist that I couldn't even shed a tear for anything.
Right.
So it was kind of like my laughter was fake. I would participate in social events simply because I felt like I had to, not because I actually wanted to be there. So it's like, how do you get to that place where for one, that you own it, right? That you say, yo, this is the
Mhm.
issue. But how can you encourage your people to say, yo, talk to me? It's okay.
Or yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things that is, I like to call them the eternal conundrum, because it is something that you could truthfully struggle with for a very, very long time. But in the grand scheme of things, it all starts with you. You have to kind of get to that point or to that place to where you feel like a lot of us will get to that point to where we don't want to feel that way anymore, right? You get so low, you so low, so low. A lot of people call it rock bottom, whatever you want to call it. You get to that point where you're just like, yo, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And the minute that you get that feeling and you can realize it and, like you say, own it and accept it, that's the start. But nobody can really get to that point if they don't have those people around them that are being genuine. That is
Hmm.
very, very important. You have to be genuinely concerned about somebody's mental and physical well-being too. Like it's not, for me at least, it's not enough to just be like, yo, you good? And then carry on about your day. And that's what I mean when I say check on your people. I am notorious for sending people, Snapchats or Instagram messages or Twitter DMs, or I'll text you if I have your number, like, yo, what's up? I haven't
Hmm.
heard from you in a minute, what you working on, what you got going on, stuff like that. And I typically will get a legit, genuine response. Like some people will say, like, yo, I'm not doing good right now, and that's okay. And we can have those back and forths, encouraging and trying to implement different things into the routine, like maybe try and switch this up a little bit or do this or get into doing that. And these are all conversations that I've had reciprocated to me when
Hmm.
I've been down, because people know that they can count on me when they get in the pits, in the depths of despair and stuff like that. And then at the same time, I know that, if I ever need some words of encouragement or something like that, then I can go right to them and get the same thing. So it's all about, like I said, starting with yourself, recognizing those warning signs when you start to feel a certain way, and just having the courage and the strength to step forward and go, I'm not doing okay right now, and reach out to those people that you really genuinely trust, that you can have those real legit conversations with.
Yeah. So how was that? How was that for you? Like that process of just being open and honest and saying, "Yo, this is where I am. This is not my highest point right now."
Yeah, it was just that. It was I had gotten to a point to where I would have certain days where I was like, yo, my highest high, I celebrate my successes, and then a couple of days later, it's like the lowest low, nothing's good. And I still have days like that. I'm not gonna get on here in front like everything's hunky dory and all good now. Like I still have days like that. But now I have that supporting cast around me to where I can
Mhm.
go, yo, I'm not having a good day, and people rally around me, and that's cool. For me personally, it was just that. It was having so many days where it was like up and down, and I'm like, yo, I get tired of feeling like this consistently. We're gonna go through life. Things are gonna happen, and where you're gonna get knocked off your horse no matter what. But the biggest thing is, again, being able to recognize those things and building that support group, that support and cast around you where you can go and say, I'm not having a good day. People that you can depend on to provide that positive reinforcement.
Okay. Now, so my next question is kind of in line with that because you're a family man. I mean,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
you work and you are
Mm-hmm.
building your own brand, your own business here. How did any of those factors play into how you navigated dealing with your like mental like space, like your health mentally, emotionally, physically, and all that?
Yeah, that's family plays a very big role in it. Family is the internal part of my supporting cast, if you will, and my kids can kind of sense when dad's not having the best of days and they kind of rally around me. I get hugs, I get checked on, people let me know my wife is good about checking in on me, being supportive. And outside of the immediate family, kids and wife, it is the ability to create. One of the single greatest things that God blessed me with is the ability to be able to tell stories, or the gift of gab, so to speak. And I find that it is amazingly um, helpful for me to be able to sit down and pour my emotions into my writing, or
Mm.
for me to lose my mind in a YouTube video, talking about a video game or a pair of sneakers or something like that. Those are all things that I really use and utilize to kind of get over that hump, if you will. But family is number one, numero uno. And then there's the extended family, if you will. My closest friends, they can expect a text from me from time to time, like, yo, I'm not having a good time, I'm not having a good day, and they know. And they kind of rally around me and kind of gas me up, so to speak. And I'm very appreciative and very thankful that I have those things in particular, family and the ability to create as my outlet.
So do you ever like did you ever feel like any pressure to like pretend to be okay simply because you're the father, you're the husband, or things? Because I feel like the way society is set up, we tend to put a lot of expectation on the man as the head of the household to where you have to
Hmm.
be okay. Like you don't have time to have any problems. You know what I mean? So was there any
Yeah.
moment where you had like where you felt like you had to deny what was going on internally because you had to put on this front that I got to be right for the kids. I got to be right for the wife. I have to look like I'm okay because they need me to be okay.
Yeah, my whole life.
Oh
My
wow.
entire life I felt that way until I started, going to therapy. And I remember saying that at work once, like that I had opened up to the fact that I went to therapy, and everybody kind of looked at me like, oh, but I don't feel that stigma as much as I used to. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, kind of where I learned the runner's analogy at, like if you're hurting, if you're sick, you take medicine, you go to the
Mm-hmm.
doctor, you exercise your muscles. Your brain, your mind is one of the biggest muscles that you have, and it can get tired. It does get tired. And sometimes just sitting around moping and hoping that things are going to get better doesn't help. So sometimes you got to go and you have to, oh, my camera fell. Sometimes you have to go and talk to somebody about it, and be like, yo, this is what I got going on. And it's highly important to kind of have that, I guess, third party support, that
Mm-hmm.
independent person that is going to tell you, like, yo, what you're feeling is natural and normal, and this is how you dig yourself out of it. But also somebody that isn't, that immediate family or immediate friend system that can go, yo, you're bugging out. You need to relax a little bit because that's important too. You have to have somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist, but you have to have somebody in your life that can call you out on your nonsense, call you out on your BS, and go, yo, you're overreacting, you're overthinking. This, what you feel, is not actually going to happen because a lot of the stuff that we're afraid of happening 90% of the time won't happen. And so that was really, really helpful for me. So up until the point that I started going to see a therapist regularly, by the way, because
Hmm.
one appointment isn't enough, by the way.
Right,
A lot of
right.
people will go like, oh, I'm going to therapy, and they do a one and done sort of thing. Like you got to go continuously. But once I started going there, and it was an indicator that the things that I'm feeling and how I feel, I am justified in certain things. I'm not justified because it is not something that is in the realm of reality. It's just an unwarranted worry. So I felt that way quite a bit. I felt like I had to be okay. I had to get myself up. I had to brush the dirt off my shoulders and keep rolling up until the point where I went to therapy. And then it was like, Rob, it's okay to not be okay. Have your days. Don't let your days turn into weeks and months and years.
Right,
Like
right,
that's really not okay. But it's all right to not have good days or not have a good day.
right. I see Ray Comics comment. He said, I got you both. And Golden Globe Productions. Hey, bro. It's good to see you. So I mean, like, so, and I told you this, how I kept telling Doctor no. So to this day, I still have not gone to see a therapist, though I know it's one of those list of things to do for me.
Yeah.
But it's just, so you've seen the benefits, right, of
Yes.
consistently, seeing a professional. Has I'm trying to make sure I word this question correctly. Has your emotional intelligence evolved at all throughout this process?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so because you there's certain things that you can kind of flesh out on your own, but then there's other things that you can only get when you go to see a therapist.
Hmm.
You learn to identify your triggers, the stuff that sets you off,
Oh,
because a lot of these things are subconscious, and you do not recognize them until somebody brings it up to you. Like, yo, did you notice like you do this
yeah.
every time you do A every single time B happens? Like maybe learn to identify that a little bit earlier and cut that out of your life. Because a lot of times what we end up doing is we kind of have these scenarios, these situations to where we just get into the definition of insanity. We do the same
Hmm.
thing over and over and over, and we expect them to change. So, um, yeah, learning to identify my triggers and the things that set me off, and then also learning to have those, I guess, those escapes. I can't think of the right phrase for them, but when you identify the trigger, know what you need to do to back away from them so you don't
Mm.
lean into it and embrace it. So again, my escape is my writing, my videos, creating content. Those are things that I love to do to kind of not necessarily just distract, but to reset the mind and get it off of whatever is kind of bumming me out or dragging me down.
Okay. Now, has this impacted your flow at all as far as like like I know you said that creating is your outlet, but has it
Mhm.
ever diminish your desire to be creative at any given time? Because I know, and I'm speaking from my experience, right? Because my experience with it, I didn't want to do anything. So, like I said, I didn't even want to be social. So it was just like
Yeah.
it may have affected me now with how I see people because I feel like I lack an emotional connection when it comes to relationships.
Hmm.
But all in all, you know what I mean? Mentally, I know what to do. It's just whether I actually feel like doing it. But I really went through a period like I could just eat and sleep. Well, I didn't even have to eat. I could just sleep and I'll be fine. So it's just like, did that affect your creativity in any aspect of it to where now it's become the creative process is really the the help as opposed to it being hurt by your experience? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. And it has. It's helped out tremendously. I myself am one that, I kind of stand in my own way at times. And that's one of the triggers. We all have a tendency to withdraw. Like you were
Mhm.
saying, you
Yeah.
kind of I think the phrasing is you become emotionally unavailable sometimes, when it comes to either those internal or external relationships, right? And that's what we do. We have the tendency to withdraw or to not want to work or not want to create. Those things are all perfectly normal. Why would you want to do something when you feel down, when
Right.
you feel upset? You don't want to do anything. When it's recognizing that and knowing, like I said, your escape, how to climb up that ladder and get into things is where you really unlock, uh, I guess, certain potential artists, recording artists, especially musicians. A lot of us will be like, man, they churned out one of the best albums ever. And it may have come at a time where they were going through their lowest point in life, right? Like people go
Right.
through real life stuff, but being able to tap into that the creativity allows you to put out, some of the best stuff that you've ever done. So it's about, to steal a phrase, embracing the suck and pushing
Hmm.
through it, and writing, that book or recording that song or whatever, because a lot of times, you need that. You need that escape. There are certain things that you can put out or discover or write or record or sing or whatever in periods of hurt that you would never know if you're
Hmm.
feeling good. So
Hmm.
it has taught me to not withdraw from the things that I want to do. And again, it's something that I'm still working on because I do have my times where I'm like, I'm not recording. This is going to be trash. But most other times I'm like, yo, I really need to get into this because, surprisingly enough, if I'm not in the greatest of moods or whatever the case may be, once I start recording or once I start writing, I really get into the flow and the rhythm of things, and it helps out tremendously. So for me, yeah, absolutely. I get after it as much as I can. And it's not even like I look forward to being in a bad mood anymore, but I don't fear it. You know, I
Okay.
don't I don't have those times where it's like, oh my God, something's off. I'm gonna go lay in bed all day and do nothing. Like I've learned to embrace those times and really try to tap into the creativity side of things.
Okay. Ray Comment said he got someone we can reach out to. Okay, send that information out. You can
Yeah,
DM it to
definitely.
me.
Right. Send it in the DM.
Send a DM. So, okay. So has um so I like part of what helped me was one little bit and whatever that one thing was that I could do that one thing every day until that one thing could expand to multiple things, right? So I had to
Yeah.
start small and then just kind of work my way up. But like it was a process, right? It didn't happen
Hmm.
overnight. It was a series of years for me. Like it really took years for me to
Yeah.
really get through it. But I do sense, and this is probably why I need to see a therapist, but I do sense that there has some like what do you call it, some residue left over
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
experience. Like I talk about that lack of emotional connection when it comes to relationships. Like,
Hmm.
did this experience impact your relationships at all? Or did you notice whether or not it impacted either how you showed up in relationships or how you treated people in your relationships or any dynamic of that, or how you were less considerate or anything like that when it came to how you navigate relationship with other people?
Yeah, I think if anybody were to be like, um, I never change. If you are one that struggles with mental health, I would laugh in your face. Like, no, there's zero chance. There's zero chance. I guess that's a consequence of it. Sometimes you do become a bit more withdrawn. Sometimes you are more irritable at the easiest of moments, right? Like you may have, your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife, or they do something that they do all the time, but when you just in the middle of in the heat of that battle, that one little thing that they do all the time is enough to push you over the edge. Like, yo,
Yeah.
will you stop doing that? Um, yeah, man, it's always something to look out for, when you feel in a certain way, and that's why it's also important to be able to recognize and identify and control those triggers, to control, the things that set you off or send you a certain way, because If you can't identify them, you have no way of being able to reduce the possibility of those residuals or that residue showing an ugly face again.
Ooh, well, tell me about myself then. Okay. Let me find a
These are
therapist.
all things that I learned. I'm really thankful. You know, I came across a dude that's a really good therapist, and I'm one that I always encourage it. You know what I'm saying? But also you have to go at your own pace. Like sometimes
Mhm.
you're not ready to go and just lay it all out there. Some people go to therapy and they still, hold stuff back. Or they lie, which is the worst thing. You know what I'm saying? Like your therapist ain't gonna be out like, yo, so and so told me this. So you have to be able to be completely open and honest with them in order to be completely open and honest with yourself. So if you can't tell somebody else like, yo, this is what's going on in my life, then they're not going to be much help either, because you're fabricating um those important details, to kind of help them out, help them help you identify your triggers and the stuff that might set you off.
I mean, was that easy for you though? Was it easy for you to just tell a therapist, yo, this is what's wrong with me?
No, no, not initially. I don't think anybody, unless you kind of like a sociopath, I guess. Like you don't go into the therapist's office like, yo, I'm about to tell him this, tell him this, tell him this, tell him this. My therapist probably didn't know a complete 75% of what was going on in my life until about 6 months into my sessions.
Oh, you really held out. Okay.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not even necessarily a holding out sort of thing. Like I had to do that for myself. I don't want to go in there because you going in, you get a half hour, 45 minutes or an hour. You can't just go in and be like, bleh. Like you'll run out of time and nothing gets solved that way. So you kind of have to take it baby steps. One
Hmm.
thing at a time, because if you are, going in there and just throwing everything up all at once, it's just like, okay, where do I start? You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So you kind of start at one point, whatever, I guess, whatever is the biggest thing that's on your mind, and then work backwards or work around it.
Okay. Whatever is the biggest thing that's on your mind. Ha.
Yeah, yep,
DOP Noble said, yes, you can't heal what you won't look at.
that is very true.
That is true.
It's very true.
Okay. So, I mean, I recognize that this requires us to really put in the mirror and do a lot of self-reflection.
Hmm.
Like how challenging is it when you realize that some of the problems are really you?
Um, at first, in a word, at first it can be jarring because our natural, most of us at least, our natural response or natural coping mechanism when things aren't going our way, we start looking at what's wrong from the outside,
Mm.
right? If you're late for work, for example, you don't go, well, maybe I could have left 10 minutes later. Nah, you look at the fact that, you left maybe 5 minutes later than you should have, and you caught a train because of that, or traffic was a little bit heavier. You don't necessarily look at those internal things, right? Or just like we were talking earlier, if you have somebody that does something all the time and you happen to be having a bad day and it just sets you off on that one day, we're not like, whoa, what's wrong with me today? They've been doing the same thing, right? The
Yeah.
whole time, but it's you that happens to have the problem with it today. So I think that's the starter, is just knowing that, sometimes it is you. Everything that you do isn't perfect. And I'm a Virgo, so I like perfection to me is always is constant, but I have to sit back and assess the situation as a whole. What is it that I did that could have caused this, or what is it that I'm doing that is causing this, before I approach, the conflict resolution, so to speak. So it was not easy at first, but after therapy and after being able to recognize and identify certain triggers, it comes a little bit easy after the fact.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the I don't know if I asked the question the same way or not, but of all of this, especially going from the initiate, well, I guess when you recognize the initiation of said challenge to coming out, well, I'll say overcoming in the process of overcoming, right?
Hmm.
What was the most difficult aspect of the entire like experience, at least up until this point?
For me, the most difficult aspect of everything, you go to therapy, you start working on your mental health because you want change, you want to
Mm-hmm.
feel better. The worst aspect or something that hurt the most is just the fact that everybody isn't going to come along on your journey, and realizing that sometimes people are my triggers is was the hardest thing of it all,
Repeat that.
having.
Can you rewind that and say that
Yeah,
again?
no.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, you have to be able to realize and recognize that certain people in your life are the things that are holding you down. And it is a very, very tough realization once you have it. But once you do get it, then that's when the work begins. You either have to learn to either distance or completely separate yourself from that trigger or those triggers, because you will never ever ever fully truly heal without doing it. It's number one. That's numero uno. Is you have to be able to recognize that sometimes it's not just situations, it's people as well.
Do you feel the loss though? Like, do you feel the loss of the severing of those relationships? Because the severing of bonds is a process, right? So there are
Yeah.
some relationships that we can just cut off instantly because the bonds weren't that deep, and then there are some
Right.
relationships where I feel we feel the loss because we feel that aspect of that exchange and that connection between us that has now gone through the process of being completely pulled away from us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always a heavy feeling. It is it's almost like a death of sorts,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's somebody that you've known for a long time, and there's no example or instance of both you and them being able to change. If you have to sever that relationship, it's like a death. I'm not saying that that person is physically dead to you, but in terms of existential
Mm-hmm.
existence,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're not there, and they can't be, and that's perfectly fine, because at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself. Now, there's a
Yes.
difference between severing relationships for being selfish, and then there's severing relationships because it is necessary for your growth. Like, some
Mm-hmm.
people will cut you off because of what you can do for them. Sometimes you have to cut people off because of what they do to you.
Mm.
And recognizing that difference is huge, is massive, when it comes to growing in your journey to better mental health.
I just want to replay that whole part all over again and just play it again. You know what I mean? Because I think that the relationship part, I think sometimes we take it lightly.
Hmm.
It's interesting for me because I tell people that, like, oh, Dia Noble said he preaching. Ray Comey said facts. Because I feel
Yeah.
that we get to a place, especially when it comes to like blood relationships, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like we find it so difficult to walk away. And now, don't get me wrong, I believe in forgiveness. I believe there's always room for redemption. But
Yes.
I saw a quote before that says forgiveness does not require reconnection, right? So just because
Hmm.
I love you and I forgive you does not necessarily mean that you have to be part of my life the way that you were before.
Right.
But I do acknowledge though that that process can hurt, right? Because
It can.
you
Yeah.
have to like go through depending on how close the relationship was, you have to go through the process of navigating your life without that person being a part of it. So it's like you're making a huge adjustment, so to speak.
Hmm.
So I recognize that. But then again, I told you I think that's part of one of my challenges because I feel like the emotional connection that I have with people is like non-exist. I shouldn't say non-existent. I can't feel it.
Yeah.
So that's something that I have to work out. That should be being fully transparent. Something
Yeah.
I got to work
And
on, right? I love
yeah,
y'all
and
though, but
that's important though, that you realize that, because a lot of people are unavailable in that sense, or just not there emotionally and they don't recognize it, and they never really understand, like, okay, this thing didn't work out yet again. Why is it? You know, one of the things that you have to work on is just baby steps. It's just working on it. That's it.
I just feel like every time I do one of these, somebody gives me homework. So, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's good. That's the beauty of conversation. That is 100% of the reason why I started doing my podcast a while back, because what you and I are doing right now, a lot of people don't do because of the fact
Yeah.
that you have technology where you can send somebody a text and you don't have to be genuine. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
How you doing text can just be a how you doing text and there's nothing behind it. Whereas if I'm sitting here face to face, well, not face to face, but we can see each other and I'm
Hmm.
legit asking you how you doing. You can see in my face and in my facial expression whether I'm serious or if I'm concerned or if I'm dejected and I'm just not there. Like if we doing this interview right now and I'm down here texting the whole time, I'm not engaged, and you don't
Right.
know that. That's the beauty of this here is that you have that personability there and that approachability. So um yeah, it's important. All of this, everything that you're doing is important. So I applaud you for doing this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to look to show up today. And by the way, I've
Always.
listened to his podcast with him and his wife. So if you guys have not checked that out, please do so. Okay. They are
Yep.
very entertaining. They are
Thank
very
you.
entertaining. So okay, so then here we go. And I mentioned this before, but I do want to like I wonder if you're gonna get a little deeper into this. You are a black male. You've been a black male all your life. Well, I mean,
100%.
okay. So
Yeah.
how has
It's on
that
my birth
like
certificate.
it's on your birth
Yeah.
how has the black experience, having lived through it, right? Because we get it from so many different angles. How has that, for one, how did it affect how you approached addressing your like your mental health and wellness? And then how has that impacted you even getting into that place where you needed to be more aware of what your mental state, your overall mental state.
Is highly important. It is a challenge, so to speak, because um in regards to like nerdiness and being a nerd and video games and anime, there's a very big contingent of black people who are into it, but there's not a lot of us that really get that stage, so to speak, right? You don't get that attention because there's so many. For every one Rob Boggan, there is 10 Josh Topolskis or Dieter Bones or Casey Neistat or Sam Sheffers. There's so many different faces, and they will get those opportunities ahead of somebody like me because companies, people that pay the money to have their content, shown and broadcast or their products shown and broadcast, feel like when it comes to black people, it
Mm-hmm.
has to fit within a certain box. It can't
Mm-hmm.
it can't necessarily be all encompassing like all these other people are doing it. It has to have an urban spin to it. It has to reach that certain audience. Like, no, we are into just as much stuff as everybody else. So that in and of itself is a challenge, and I think sometimes, and this is really unfortunate, sometimes we are our own biggest enemy.
Yeah.
I can remember um, being invited to a Comic Con a while ago. It was a couple years ago, and it was a mostly black Comic Con, if not 100%. And I was really really excited to go. And then probably like a week and a half before the show, I started getting emails from the person that ran that Comic Con, like, "Yo, you're like a different person than who I thought you were." And it was basically presented to me that I wasn't black enough to attend this Comic Con. And it was kind of like a show and prove sort of thing. Like, yo, your content is all off. You're not really talking to a lot of black people, yada yada yada. And
What?
I'm like, yo, I would rather not go. If this is the case, if you're going to judge me on that, I would rather not go because I have enough legit white people doing the same thing. Like, you can't do for us what we want you to do, so we're gonna pass. I have enough resistance already. And for that person to have been that way, it was heartbreaking for one. And for two, it was eye-opening because it's like, yo, if and I'm not huge, I'm not a massive, property or anything yet.
Yet.
But but it was like, maybe I could have, been the thing to really pop off. Maybe I could have been the person that people really enjoy. Um, they will never ever know, and they will probably never get that opportunity again just because of how it happened. But that was really heartbreaking to me because I feel like we need to have that camaraderie. We need
Yeah.
to be able to look out for each other because realistically, in the grand scheme of things, every other community does it,
Yes.
right? Everybody does it. It doesn't matter if you are poor. It doesn't matter if you're middle class. Especially, it does matter if you're rich because they're more likely to work with you on that level. But it's like, yo, if you white, if you Asian, if you Latino, whatever, we rock with you because I want to see all my people succeed. And for whatever
Right.
reason, we haven't cracked that mold yet. And that's the really, really heartbreaking thing. Like, and that's another reason why I applaud you. I see your small business shout outs that you do. I see the people that you feature on your show, and it's like, yo, that is really super duper dope. It's awesome. We need more people to do that for sure. So being a black man in this industry in this world right now, yes, it's still challenging. Not even because of all the external forces. A lot of times it's our
It's
own. It
us.
be your own people. Like the saying go, it be your own people. But that's more motivation for me than anything because the single biggest measure of revenge that you can have on people like that is success.
Yeah. That's
So
well, you spitting all kinds of good stuff. DLP knows that most of the times we are our worst enemy. Ray Common
mhm.
said that person is straight trash on many levels. We don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
So how
not at
did
all.
I mean, which is so interesting because I feel like we should be past that point where we have this one version of what blackness is supposed to look like. Like
Yeah,
is we're diverse. Like we are probably the most
right.
diverse group that exists. So why is there still this one black is supposed to be like this? So if you don't fit into this box, you ain't black enough.
Yeah.
But like with that being that though, I grew up watching like anime and X-Men and all that when I was a kid,
Everything.
right? All
Yeah.
that. My
Hmm.
mom was all into it. My dad and my mom watched Star Trek. We watched Star Wars. That was
Yeah.
it, right? We was into Lord of the Rings. All that, right? And so I don't remember, and I'm not saying it didn't exist. My community was actually very small though, so I don't know if it's a good, measure. But I don't
Yeah.
remember having like the black geek crew that was ostracized. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
if that was the case, then technically we would have fit in it. And I don't know if it's
Right.
different because of our family. I don't know if it's different because like we were athletes as well. I don't know. But like, did you have that experience where because you were into like that kind of geek world that you weren't part of like the cool kids crew or however way, or you were treated a certain kind of way?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Because it's more acceptable now than ever to be different. And I'll circle back to that thought in a second. But I can remember being in middle school and in high school and waking up watching, MTV in the morning and really, really, really loving and enjoying Everlong by the Foo Fighters. But I can't talk about that song with anybody else at my school because it's like, yo, you buck the Who? The Who Fighters? What are you listening to? That's trash. You weirdo. Stuff like that. It would get to that point. So, yeah, like there was a lot of stuff that, coming up, I kind of had to, basically keep at home. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody else really would get it or understand it. Like, and sometimes even to this day, I run into that. Like, as an adult man, especially adult black man, if I tell somebody I still watch wrestling, they're like, "What? You know it's fake, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, but we're also not running from T2000s right now either. Terminator is not real either. So I
Right.
watch it for entertainment." Those are kind of the things that I ran into when I was younger. But now, in 2021, and what I hope, if anybody watching this or watches the replay or hears about it, reads about it, whatever, the biggest takeaway that I try to instill in my children, in younger people, in everybody. It is dope to be you no matter what. WWE is trash. That's hilarious. We will talk about that offline because I have lots of thoughts on that too. But it's cooler than ever to be yourself now more than ever, right? You have big giant corporations that are willing to stick their neck out for black creators and black creatives, or LGBTQ plus people, everybody. It's dope to just be yourself right now. So I love seeing it, and I love being able to experience that in my later years. I wish it was just a little bit more prevalent, I guess,
Hmm.
going back to my previous example, but it's always a work in progress.
So do you think that our black geek space is not as open and large and inviting as it comes off? So I say that because to me, I'm kind of new to the scene, right? I didn't,
Hmm.
like I said, I didn't grow up in like a as a black nerd, so to speak, or a
Yeah.
black geek, so to speak, comic geek or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't get into this aspect of it as far as the comic conventions and everything until like 2015. My younger brother was into it, and he's the
Hmm.
reason why I even got into it on this level. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, again, he was an athlete. I don't know if that makes a difference, but to me, our experience was just different. So it's like the
Yeah.
space that I see now are space that I'm involved in because of people that I meet, right? So like Ray
Hmm.
Comics, we met Ray Comics at the Grand Rapids Comic Con. So it was just like, okay, so there's a black indie comic creator. And then we come across all these other ones as a result of just kind of this network that's kind of growing. But everyone that I come across seemed really cool. JP
Right.
Jackson Art. I had a whole
Yeah.
conversation with him at Virtuous Con and he like real dope. So it's like, is it not that inviting? Is it and I know my scope is really small, but
Hmm.
is it not that inviting? Is it really still kind of selective?
No, I would say the exact opposite, which is why my experience with that specific Comic Con was so disheartening and so heartbreaking. Is
Okay.
because if you've ever dealt with like the Black nerd community, we don't. We don't accept you no matter what. It don't matter if you black, white, red, yellow, purple, gay, straight, whatever. If you want to sit and argue with me on a forum or a thread about why Vegeta is or is not the best character in DBZ, guess what? We gonna have that, and we gonna accept you, and we gonna agree to disagree and move on after that. Our community, the black nerd, black geek, whatever you want to call it, community is one of the most diverse communities ever because it's so inclusive.
Hmm.
Why is it inclusive? Because we are used to not having our stories being told. The heroes, the movies, the comics that we read are typically about people who don't look like us.
Hmm.
So we still can enjoy that with knowing, what time it is. But at the same time, when T'Challa got his own movie, we
Yeah.
showed out,
Yes, we
right?
did.
When Miles Morales got into the Spider-Verse, we
Yep.
showed out because that representation matters, but it doesn't stop us from being able to sit and enjoy and engage, and I think that's why our community is again so dope, and why it's so inclusive and so friendly with everybody from all walks
Yeah.
of life, because again we're used to not necessarily seeing consistent faces that look like ours in those storylines, which is why Ray Comics is so dope, because representation matters, and the
Representation matters.
heroes, it absolutely, the heroes in their storybooks look like me, they look like my son, so I'm going to forever support that because I didn't get to read it as much when I was growing up, so why wouldn't I now?
And the main character from Okimus is from Flint. I just want to put that out there because I think that's dope.
Super dope, the dopest.
So I got one question left for you, and that's
Okay.
any piece of advice that you would have to someone who may be dealing with any type of mental or emotional stress, or just wanting to be encouraged, or just on any level.
Yeah, yeah, it is to know again that it is okay to not be okay, but you have to again be able to recognize and realize when you're not okay, and to let other people know that you're not okay. You have to kind of extend that olive branch and reach out, and be able and willing to be transparent, to be honest with both yourself and with others, and to know that there you're not alone. A lot of
Mm,
times when you struggle with mental health things, it feels so incredibly isolating that you do feel like you are alone and by yourself, but you are not. So if you're out there, and these are things that you struggle with, just know that there's a whole bunch of us that identify with you, and we know the struggle, and it will be okay. Find your outlet, whether it is
yes.
singing, whether it is blogging or vlogging or writing or whatever. Know your triggers so that you know when you need to take a step back and hit that reset button. And just know that people are out there. We care. We're looking out for you. We want to see you do well just as much as we want to see ourselves do well. So that's my advice. It is okay. You are not alone. We keep pushing through it. We'll make it through together.
I like that. That was good. Great advice. So, what is next for Rob Boggan? Curated culture, all the things you got going on.
Well, what's next is finally getting back out into the world. I'm very excited that to see that Comic Cons are coming back, and one of my new favorite sayings that has emerged is "We outside." So I can't wait to get back outside and get back into those Comic Cons and enjoy and consume. I'm working on a small little revamp of the curated culture. We are getting back to the essence of things. I am restarting the podcast back up pretty soon. We took a little break ski in between because my laptop decided it wanted to die, but
Mm.
that's going to be solved pretty soon. So we'll be back on that and just continue growth. I've learned the power of positivity, speaking things into existence. So I'm going to say
Yes.
continued growth and continued success on the site. That's what's next for me.
All right. I like that. Ray Comment said, love y'all. We love you too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Love you too, bro.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, Rob. Thank you. This was fun. I enjoyed this
Absolutely.
conversation. I knew I would. I had a dream about this last night. That's what's so crazy. I
It's always
appreciate
good
you
to talk.
joining me. Yeah, always, right? Always. I
Yeah,
definitely appreciate you coming through.
absolutely.
Um, I'm gonna be doing this for a while, so I'm probably gonna ask you to come back again. We might be talking about something a little different, but
Hey,
definitely come
whenever
back.
you ready, you let me know. I will gladly schedule an hour of my time to talk to you anytime.
By the way, Rob was the first person that interviewed me regarding my book when I released it. I just
Yeah,
want to give
make
you
sure
that
y'all
shout
check out
out.
that podcast too. Yeah,
That link
absolutely.
is in my bio too if you want to go check it out. But thank y'all. Thank y'all all for showing up today. Thank you, Rob, again for coming us and blessing us with your wisdom and your experience.
Thank you.
Um, Looking forward to having a talk again. And until then, y'all have a good evening.
Hey, thank you. It was a blasty blast.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Later.